6 now, so yeah, probably about 8 o'clock. Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, all these groups, and it's not all one group, obviously Al-Qaeda is a Western creation, the name is, but all these Sunni extremist terrorist groups are the pawns of the New World Order. They're moved around the global chessboard to the different countries where the New World Order wants to destabilize governments and initiate regime change. It's funny because there's a board game called The War on Terror, which has come out in the last few years. And in the game, you can play as the New World Empire, and you have to maneuver terrorists around on this map of the world, and you can only invade countries where your terrorists are on the border of that country, so you have to move them in. But it's based on fact, because we've just mentioned from being in Afghanistan to fight the Soviets, they then moved them into Bosnia in '92 to fight that war. After that, they were moved into Serbia, Yugoslavia to fight that war and to train the KLA. The Albanians were trained in Afghanistan by Osama bin Laden with the help of the CIA. That's on the record. And then after that, they were moved back into Afghanistan for the attack after 9/11. And now they've been moved into Pakistan. And along the line, you see the fingerprints of their activities. Also, they're in Iran under the auspices of Jundullah, which was announced in the 2007 White House program to destabilize Iran, that they would be funding Jundullah, which is an Iranian militant terrorist group formerly led by Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. And in fact, just yesterday, in an Iranian court case, a guy called Abdul Hamid Rigi, who was described as a senior member of the Jundullah terrorist group, confessed in court that the group, quote, had been trained and financed by the US and the Zionists. So he's there admitting in court that they're getting funding from the CIA in Israel, and that was announced by the White House itself. So it's not as if it's some kind of confession obtained from torture. He's saying it in an Iranian courtroom, and it's on the
let's
record.
be clear. Israeli papers admit this, British papers, U.S., none of this is even our opinion.
No, and then you've got the Taliban, the former Taliban member, the defector, saying that he got out because he found out it was all being run by the CIA in Israel and that they were killing civilians in order to destabilize countries. He got out, he said that, and 3 days later he was shot dead. So you've got defectors coming out, you've got members coming out and saying this, and then you have the actual events that have their fingerprints all over them, the mosque bombing in Iran, on May 29th, just before the election controversy in Iran. You've got the Samara mosque bombing in Iraq in February 2006, which had all the fingerprints of an inside job.
Well, no, that was in mainstream news that U.S. and British forces went in for hours, wired the building in front of everybody, and blew it up and said Al-Qaeda did it.
Yeah, I mean, that's, even Ray McGovern said that it was obvious that they did it, basically. For what reason? I mean, you've got this propaganda about Iraqis regaining their sovereignty just because some U.S. troops are pulled out of the cities, which, by the way, if there's any kind of emergency, all the Iraqi puppet government does is ask them for help, and they come right back in. You've got at least 55 fully operational military bases, U.S. military bases throughout the whole country. You've still got 130,000 U.S. military personnel that will remain. And the top commanders have said on the record that even after the supposed full withdrawal date, which is set to be sometime in 2011, that they're not going anywhere. Of course they're not going to pull out. They've captured the country. It's a launch pad for their future wars, and they need it to be unstable to a certain extent to give them justification to remain.
And that was always the public plan.
Yeah, and they'll create media events to reinforce it in people's minds that it's a black and white situation, that it's good guys and bad guys, like this U.S. soldier that's supposedly being captured today by the Taliban, when the Taliban are working with the U.S. to do all this. I mean, you've also got the MKO, the Mujahideen Khalq organization, which was trained in Iraq and is now being used by the CIA in Iran and was used with these recent riots and protests to radicalize that.
Well, that's my point, is the White House is on record funding Wahabi al-Qaeda, number 3 in al-Qaeda, to attack Iran. And they think our public's so dumb, they say Iran is al-Qaeda and attacking Iraq when Iran's a Shiite system, the opposite of al-Qaeda, the opposite of Wahhabist, the opposite of Sunni. Wahhabist, Sunni al-Qaeda groups, and I'm not versus Shiite. Man, there are now Sunni people on YouTube and Google Video attacking me because I keep pointing out that they're using Sunni groups to attack Iran, the Shiite. I'm just reporting the facts here. Can you believe this show? I'm attacked by liberals, neocons, people out of Dubai, people out of Afghanistan are attacking me in news publications. I'm being attacked out of Saudi Arabia because that is another criminal. And I know it's shameful for you Wahhabis. You claim you're fighting the West all day. You were created by British intelligence. And because you'd go in and overthrow elected governments all over the Middle East to put your Wahhabist form of government in, you were hired 90-plus years ago by the British. You were hired by Hitler again, and you were hired by the British and the U.S. after World War II. You were a shameful group of people. I don't mean your Sunni brand of Islam. I'm not a Muslim. I'm not wading in on Shiite, versus Sunni. I'm not involved in all that. But just don't deny the White House admits, and you admit, you're attacking Iran. Iran doesn't have Shiites running around in Saudi Arabia blowing stuff up. In fact, if you look at the military forces of the Sunnis, they're a bunch of clowns, man. They're filled with British and U.S. and Israeli intelligence. And I look at the Shiites every time, and they're not. It was Shiites that beat Israel when they went into Lebanon. So let's just face it, Shiites are the ones that the New World Order are after. While the media tells you that the real threat is the Sunnis, is the Wahhabist sect of the Sunnis, when you guys are literally from the womb of the New World Order. And I don't mean your brand of Islam. I mean the last 90 years, your leadership is British intelligence. And now they've got their little satellite Israel and the U.S. God help us. God help us.
لا ينهاكم الله عن الذين لم يقاتلوكم في الدين ولم يخرجوكم من دياركم أن تبروهم وتقسطوا إليهم إن الله يحب المقسطين إنما ينهاكم الله عن الذين قاتلوكم في الدين وأخرجوكم من دياركم وظاهروا على إخراجكم أن تولوهم ومن يتولهم فأولئك هم الظالمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتخذوا اليهود والنصارى أولياء بعضهم أولياء بعض ومن يتولهم منكم فإنه منهم إن الله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين
يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتخذوا اليهود والنصارى أولياء بعضهم أولياء بعض ومن يتولهم منكم فإنه